All right. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to join this webinar today. This means a lot to me. I would like to share just two things to be followed during the webinar. Keep yourselves muted and switch off your cameras to avoid disruption during the webinar. We will have a Q&A session at the end. Kindly post your questions in the chat box. Well, to help you know me better, I'm Miss Vichitra, IB Middle Years Program and Diploma Program Biology Educator from Wockhardt Global School and IB Continental School in Aurangabad, Maharashtra. After teaching sciences for more than a decade in national curriculum schools, I have been blessed with an opportunity to facilitate IB students, exploring a new education system that aims at transforming students as they learn using dynamic inquiry cycles, action, and reflection. It has motivated me to take up this webinar on individualistic learning. Individualistic learning is a process where each student work on their own. Isn't that sounding a little difficult task? Even I could not understand this concept till I decided to read up and adopt this approach within my class. Being an IB educator, I had the liberty to practice this approach with my students. I now will share my screen with you. Well, I welcome you all once again. Let's think about this. You can see two pictures on the screen, and I would like you to think about it. Have you ever come across such situations in your classroom? If you have come across such situations in your classroom or you have seen, what do you think about these two pictures? I would like you to put it in the chat box. Yes, we can see that, right, individualistic learning, and you can see the common classroom scenario in the first picture. You can also call it as a cooperative or a collaborative learning where all students are grouped together. And in the second picture, you can see a student trying, yeah, to put the puzzle blocks together, the puzzle to try to solve this puzzle together. All right, let's now check out what an IL means. IL is nothing but an individualistic or individualized learning. Now, when you look at individualized learning, let's break that particular word. Individual. An individual is nothing but like a cell forms the basic unit of life and is the smallest part of the body that cannot be broken further. As like an atom that cannot be broken further into its parts, similarly, we have an individual, a smallest unit of society, which cannot be broken further. And learning. Learning is a permanent change you see in the behavior after an experience, or it can be how a person reacts after gaining an experience, or it can be a response, how an individual responds after an experience. Individualized learning, when you club together, you will see it's a process where each individual work on their own. Yeah, why individual learning or individualistic learning approach? It's because if you see in the picture here, you find every individual is unique. Learners today, they are diverse in their abilities, they are diverse with their academic needs and backgrounds. So, to meet their needs, educational needs, personal needs, and to maximize their learning potential, we have to choose this approach. So, individualistic learning is nothing but it's a process where each student works on their own and be a simple, like if we can just make it simple, we can see that it's a the process that we can give to the child. The child goes through this process individually. Now, among the alternative approaches we see today in the education, varied education systems, we see that there is a focus on a more individualized approach. And this approach can be achieved through individualized instruction. Now, individualized instruction, where the traits of the individual learner are given more consideration. Each approach to individualizing instruction is different, but they all seek to have three fundamental variables. First, you can see here individualized instruction. Is a method of teaching in which you can uh, work with three fundamental variables. One is content, the other is instruction technology. It's nothing but method, and third is pace of learning. So let's take up each element and see how we can individualize it for each student and based upon their abilities and interests of each learner. Pace. Usually we see the pace of the instruction is either controlled by the teacher or it is controlled by the student. What is pace? The pace is nothing but the amount of time given to a student to learn the content. Here, if we see that the pace of instruction, if it is controlled by the teacher, which usually happens um, uh, in our regular education system, we see that the opposite extreme, that is, where the learner controls or becomes an exclusive part of controlling the pace of instruction without any time limit, or between these two limits it could be also tried out like um, sharing equally by the teacher or and by the student. Next is method, how to individualize instruction using method. What is a method? The way the instruction is structured and managed in the classroom with a particular student is method. So more consideration is given to this particular method, the way in which learning occurs. In majority of cases, we see instruction is designed for an average learner in the classroom, and it is customized by the teacher or by the instructor as you go across the unit. So for this instruction to be considered individualized, what do you need to do? The instruction has to be designed to account to a specific learner characteristic. So you check out different learners, you check their abilities, and tailor your lesson accordingly so that the student feels comfortable and enjoys the process. We now come to the next one, that is content. Content is nothing but the material to be learned. The material to be learned. And majorly, the least frequently modified component is the learning content. Tracking and enrichment. These are the examples of customizing your instructional content. Students, if they define their own content and they pursue their own learning based on their interests, that will be the best instruction, individualized instruction you can give to the students. Content can be unique to each individual and it can be tailored keeping their interests and their diversified needs in mind. If you plan to keep content uniform, then the range of activities available to a learner will become the indicator to know how individualized your content is for that particular learner. How to plan and what kind of tools you can use to individualize your instruction. So to meet the needs of a particular learner, you can use different strategies in the classroom, teaching strategies and students' learning strategies. You can select them according to the type of the unit and according to the student's interest, learning style. Varied resources you can use, which are readily available, and you can also try out different types or kinds of assessments. Now, this assessment doesn't mean that we need to assess a student during the process um, and making it hard for a student, but it should be an assessment for learning. Now, what are some of the methods to individualize learning? Teacher plan can be carefully and collaboratively ensure that they are using meaningful data to gain insights on how individual children are progressing towards a goal. Teachers can provide opportunities for children to approach their learning in a variety of ways, which provides more opportunities to retain information, which will improve the moral and excitement for learning. Like I just mentioned that we can refer to the use of strategies, refer to the use of varied resources and assessments to meet the needs of a particular learner. How do you individualize instruction for students? Quite simple. If you want to see a child right at the top there, readily excited and is keen on learning and gaining confidence, then if you should use these 5 steps to individualize his learning. 1. Set clear and specific goals. If you look at learning, you see that every learning involves a problem and a solution, right? And every curriculum gives some standards, some core standards to a particular discipline and a subject. So when you are looking at as a classroom, in normal scenario in the classrooms, what happens is we look at the objectives or goals as a class, but we tend to forget that in a class there are students who have different abilities, who are unique with their abilities, with their learning styles. So, if in individualistic learning, what you need to do or what you will be doing in your classroom is you will set clear and specific goals. Make those goals challenging and realistic. Make goals dynamic and review them regularly. Give students a constructive feedback so that a child feels important. A student, a learner who is sitting with you feels um, his importance. He understands that he is cared for. So let students own their progress. And the best thing to do, the most important thing to do is to involve parents. Keep them regularly informed about what are you doing or what is your individualistic learning plan for the particular student. Now, when we said that in the previous slide you saw that we are setting specific goals, we're making goals challenging and realistic, making goals dynamic and reviewing them regularly. What kind of learning goals will you see? The goals for individualistic learner, uh, each person's goals are unrelated to the goals of others. So if you, in your classroom, if you have students of about, say about a number of students and you are planning to try out individualistic learning approach, then you need to plan each person's goals in such a way that they are unrelated. They will be unrelated to the goals of others. As their learning styles are different, they come up with different educational needs. Okay, so the goals are not related to the goals of others. There is no correlation among the goal attainment too. Let the student work at his own pace. No interdependence. Student is not dependent on others for his learning. He explores, he learns all by himself. We are each in this alone. So individualistic learning claims that we are each in this alone. Evaluation is a criterion reference and may be limiting. So now that I'm into IB and I have realized how important it is, the assessment, how important is assessment criterion objectives, how important it is for you to set learning objectives for your students, and how important it is. It is not important that you just give an assessment just to check what their understanding is. No, it's more than that. So evaluation is criterion referenced. We have a set of criterion objectives given, and in those objectives are those objectives have some strands, and each strand, the child is given an opportunity to pick the strand and work upon it. So understand that the evaluation we do for these students in an individualistic learning approach is criterion referenced. They are rewarded for individual product. You don't have to look at a group project. You don't have to look at what a child is doing as a group. Is he involving himself? No. Individualistic approach will help the child develop his critical thinking skills, help the child develop his research skills, help the child um, gives an assurance that the child, to a child to face the world. He doesn't become a competitor. running behind, like if they fail, then I will gain success. No, that's a wrong approach. So instead of developing a competitive spirit, this individualistic learning approach develops an individual skill development in the student. So he is rewarded for an individual product. Like we say, there are pros and cons for every approach, and here also we have few pros and cons for this approach. Let's see what are the pros. Student-centric approach. Definitely, this approach is a student-centric approach because we are focusing on an individual learner, meeting the needs and interests of diverse learners, opportunities for the learners to learn at their own pace. Students gain confidence. A student, a learner, an individual gains self confidence as we, the instructors, the trainers, the facilitators, tailor our lessons accordingly, looking at their or keeping their specific needs and abilities in mind. Gain self assurance of the skills. They need to be successful in life. So it gives this approach helps them to develop the skills which will help them build confidence that uh, they will be able to um, they will be able to um, mold themselves in any kind of situation and be successful in life. It also maximizes their growth, their learning growth. Well, there are a few cons for this approach, definitely on the teachers or facilitators part. Time constraint is one of it, and our chopped up schedules are a big hurdle for this conduction or adoption of this approach. Class size, if you look at, is another drawback that we face, we teachers are battling with. Teaching load is another one, big constraint. Then teacher preparedness. I think it is perfectly all right that if we are planning to take up or adopt this in a huge or a large strength of class strength, so you can go ahead and try out this approach um, basically for a particular unit where you are tailoring the uh, lesson, you're tailoring your unit accordingly, looking at different needs of your or learning styles of your students. Um, if you look at the screen right away, more than cons, you can see the benefits of it. So definitely go and try out this approach. Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best they can possibly be. With this thought, let's do our bit to help our students. Thank you. If you have any queries or the floor is now open, you can put your questions in the chat box and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much. I'll stop the screen share. Well, if there are no questions, I would like to thank you all once again for joining this session and um, please go ahead and try out this approach. Okay, there's one question that has come up. How does the school plan on implementing these? It's a individualistic approach is an um, is an approach that can be that is tried and tested, and it's the approach most wanted in this in the modern education system, uh, or I would also put it as an international education system. Uh, Definitely, like you have seen the pros and cons of this approach. Their schools are moving from the regular pattern of teaching, involving the groups at a time, to an individualistic approach. Though it is a little difficult. Not, I can't say little difficult, but it's a difficult task. It's challenging for the teachers with, like I mentioned, with the with a huge strength. But um, since I am working with an IB school, I can assure you that the curriculum, that the international curriculum is definitely looking up for the teachers who are planning to adopt this particular approach. It's quite simple. We can try it out in smaller groups. Just do it for a particular lesson, and you will see the difference, a huge difference you make in students' life. Thank you for that question. Any more questions? I hope I have answered your question. Okay, there are no more questions. Fine. All right. So thank you very much. I think we all should be motivated to, um, uh, adopt this approach in our classrooms. Just take it to your classrooms, do it, and try it out, and you will see that you have helped out soon. Thank you so much for joining in. Have a nice day. Have a good day.